Hi everyone, Allison here. I am the recreation therapist over at the health center. You might recognize me from my Wednesday exercise classes, but today I am going to give you all a little rundown of my houseplants. January 10th was National Houseplant Appreciation Day. So in honor of that day and in honor of all the gardening and horticulture programs that I have over at the health center, I wanted to show you all what we have been working on from this past summer, as well as some of my houseplants that will eventually make it into the health center when it is not so chilly and damp out. So I have a whole array of some of my plants. I got my handy dandy mister. And I also have some notes, so if you see me looking around, I've got some information on some of the plants' symbolic properties, as well as some information about their blooming schedules, where they're kind of native to, because most of them are not from around here or native at least to New Jersey. So let's get started. I have kind of accumulated a lot of plants probably over the past year, mainly because of the pandemic, but also because I got into a lot of outdoor recreation activities where I was able to spend a lot of time with my sister, who is a wildlife conservation biologist. So I got to learn a lot more about the biology of plants and the benefits that it can bring everyone. In addition to my profession as a recreation therapist, it's a very holistic medicine. So, using plants and using nature is a wonderful way to bring the outdoors indoors, especially during the times of the pandemic when we're not really able to spend outside time with so many loved ones, at least not like we used to. But let's get started. I have a whole array of plants today. I also have my plant bag just in case I spot a brown leaf that I need to get rid of. Let's see, we'll start with our first guy. I'll make sure I bring it up to the camera as well, because getting a good look at these guys up close will really show you the beauty and the growth that is happening. One thing to note is that some of them are in kind of a dormant state right now. It is winter. So we've got this guy, which is a regular garden croton, kind of like a crouton, but without the U. And it is currently in a dormant state, but it has some old leaves that will really show you that bright, vibrant color, but we'll get to him soon enough. I also might refer to them as him or her. There's no reasoning behind it. I just feel better calling them him or her rather than it, because they are beautiful creatures. So this first guy is called a white velvet plant. I'll be able to bring it up to you. It is an evergreen, usually native to northeastern Mexico. The plant type is actually an herb. Not like a common like oregano herb. This guy's a little different. It's not super toxic, but definitely don't eat it like oregano. It is the perfect plant, in my opinion, for someone who has somewhat of a brown thumb. It is really drought tolerant. You can really beat this guy up as long as it gets good light. It will grow. It usually has long blooming flowers that can happen really at any point in time, as long as it has the perfect soil condition as well as a bright light. So it likes sitting in front of windowsills, but it can also kind of tolerate indirect light as well. So good guy for you brown thumbers out there. Not to be rude. But let me get nice and close. So you can see kind of on the ends, it has this nice fuzzy leaves. You can see right here, when I first got it, I wasn't really sure of what kind of a plant it was. I did save it from a plant store, so it was $2. And I thought it would like a little more water than it did. So the stems got a little more brown than I would have liked, but alive and well nonetheless. And you can see, let me find a good little sprout. So right here, all of the little sprouts come up. You can see one forming right in there, right there. So this plant will kind of continue to grow upwards and outwards, usually to direct light, which I learned the hard way. I didn't rotate it enough, and you can kind of see now. Let me see if I could get it on camera. You can see everything kind of started to grow out that way. That's because it was facing my window like this, and my window was over here. So it does tend to grow to your light source. So if you have a plant like this, or you have a plant that grows toward light sources, make sure you rotate it. Learned that one. Happy to pass along the information. But again, that is our beautiful white velvet. Very soft. I love it a lot. All of the coworkers that saw him today, or all the team members, definitely came in, gave him a little touch. Because how could you not if you see something this white and silky? It's also known as a white gossamer, if you want to know some of the other names for them. So that's our beautiful white velvet. All right. Next, we have this curly guy. This is called a bird's nest fern. You can kind of see in the middle why it's called a bird's nest fern when I bring it up close to you. It can get pretty big. Some of them are known to get about 3 feet wide and 3 feet tall. So this guy is just a little sprout. He's just a little baby. I haven't had him for very long. I just moved into a new house with my boyfriend, so I bought this guy in honor of the new house, because you have to do that. This plant, because it's a fern, it also likes a lot of spraying instead of just heavy watering, mainly for the leaves to get the humidity level that they like. And I mean, it's just a fun looking plant. It's got all these curly little leaves. It is an evergreen, yep, it is an evergreen. So the kind of folklore behind this plant, the bird's nest fern, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. So the folklore is that the bird's nest fern wanted to choose the right season to bloom. So it waited past the peonies for spring, the lotuses of summer, the chrysanthemums of autumn, and the plums in winter. It ended up missing every season to bloom, so it just decided to be an evergreen. I thought that was a nice folklore. All right, let's get up close and personal to this guy. So you can see all of these little curly leaves. I'm gonna put the bottom down for a second. You can see all those curly leaves, and up in the middle, or where the fronds grow out, and you can see each little bulb of the frond that's about to come out, and this little guy is already starting to sprout. Sorry, my hands are shaking so much. Just get so excited to talk about these guys. So that is our curly little bird's nest fern. He is one of my favorites because it's kind of so big and curly. It's a really nice talking point for anyone that comes into your house. He is my newest one, so I've got high hopes for him. Let's see. This is another plant that's super good for anyone with a brown thumb. Just give it a good amount of water, spray it more often, and you're good to go. So we'll start again. This guy could actually use a little more water. So this is my croton. Like I said before, kind of like crouton, but without the U. This was another guy that ended up growing towards my sunlight. So you will see the top leaf is kind of a weird shape. I did that on accident, but it is kind of funny. It looks like a little stick of butter at top. Because we've got all these long leaves kind of sticking out, and then this one at the top is just kind of like a circle. This plant, I actually had to get into the building super fast because it hates cold weather. I learned that the hard way as well. Over early into the winter, before it was getting super cold, I left my window open, and this guy ended up losing just a bunch of leaves all at once. So it was very upsetting, but he clearly is doing well. The leaf colors, once I bring it up closer, or you might be able to see from here, you'll be able to see basically an array of every color this guy could possibly come in. It'll be a red color, scarlet, green, yellow, orange, basically any of those vibrant colors you could see. And it's interesting because the amount of sunlight this croton gets will determine the leaf color. So at one point, all of these leaves are that bright green and yellow. At one point, the way my sunlight was coming in through the window, only the top leaves were getting direct sunlight. So that's why they're this bright yellow and green. And the red, it kind of got a little less sunlight, so it turned a little darker. But I like this mix of color. I think it's really cool. The plant itself is symbolic of constant change, which is always happening constantly. I haven't had it for a long enough time to see it bloom. I think I might have seen one bloom a really long time ago, maybe about a year ago. But it does yield pink flowers, so I'm excited for that. I'll bring it in a little closer to you all, so you can see all of those different colors. At the bottom we have, hopefully no soil will fall through the bottom. On the bottom we have that really nice vibrant red, kind of a scarlety type color. And then at the top we've got this big pudgy leaf. Let's see, we've got kind of a mix on this leaf right here. See, it's got kind of a yellow orange towards the end, but a deep red green in the middle. And there's kind of, to me at least, no rhyme or reason to where all of these leaves stick out. It looks like at the top I can be expecting one more in there, and a couple growing in maybe right out here. So this is a funny guy. I mean, it's very hardy. It is a tropical plant, so this is one of my plants that I keep near my humidifier. Yes, I bought a humidifier specifically for my plants. But yeah, it'll also do well with misting. Just make sure the leaves don't dry out. That's the main part. Because once the leaves dry out, then it's, you know, you gotta water it a little better, make sure you give it good care. But that's the croton. All right, next, I have two of these guys actually. They are spider plants. I've got a smaller one over here that was in kind of a Valentine's Day pot. So let's see, this guy's kind of small. This one I just watered so the pot looks a little dark. This one was actually a baby that grew off of my sister's spider plant. And this guy I bought at a store, I forget which store, but I bought him and he was maybe about this big, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, why did I do that? But he ended up growing out really well. He's got all these long legs. Spider plants can also be called spider's ivy, as well as grass lilies, but I haven't heard them be called anything else other than a spider plant, which is what I call them. So these are good plants as well. The main thing is to make sure that the dirt doesn't get too dry. But these guys, in my opinion, are pretty dramatic. So if I've noticed when the soil gets dry, the plant will droop, which a lot of people have their spider plants hanging above them. So it can be difficult to tell if it's drooping or not, but I like my guys in pots so that I can figure that out. And they got its name as a spider plant because these long leaves, when they're ready to reproduce, they shoot out these long leaves, and at the bottom of them, that's where little smaller spider plants will grow. I think they're called spiderettes. So I wish I had one that was happening now so I could show you. But basically at the end of them, if I put these two together, there will be one that shoots off at the end. And all you need to do is put that one in a cup of soil and the roots will grow out of it, and then you can just snip it right off of this plant, and then you've got multiples. So what happened was my sisters had spiderettes. She potted a bunch of them, and now a whole bunch of us have little spider plants. So it's a good gift if you've got a spider plant and it starts reproducing. Like I said, they can be a little dramatic. There's one leaf on here that's getting a little brown, mainly from humidity, also from the dryness of the soil. So they're easy to read for the most part. The symbolic meaning between spider plants, or for spider plants, there we go, they're meant to symbolize hope during hopelessness. So I just learned that when I looked them up to make sure I was getting all my information correctly. They also bloom. I believe they bloom little white flowers kind of at the ends, similar to the spiderettes. And they can be variegated, so they can come in a couple different types of colors. Like, the difference between these two is that my plant in this little pot, the middle of the leaves are white while the outside of the leaves are green. And this one is the complete opposite. The middle of the leaves are green while the outsides are white. So I'll bring these guys over. We'll get a good look. So this one has definitely grown out a little more than the other one. It still has these short little stumpy leaves at the bottom, and then it'll end up shooting out more long fronds, and then the little spiderettes will grow from there. And you could see that one was my white inside, green outside spider plant. And here's the other one. Oh, let me make sure it's on camera before I talk about it. You can see this one is green in the middle and white on the outside. Doesn't have many long growing fronds, but hopefully they will come. It's winter, so some plants are taking a break from growth right now. Let me put him down. All right. Whew. Okay, let's see, our next one. This is one of my favorite plants that I own. I hate to pick favorites, but this one is really awesome. Its Latin name, I wrote it down, is Zamioculcas zamifolia. So if you can't remember that, like me, it is commonly referred to as a ZZ plant. Mine is, I want to say it's small. These things can get really big, but it's really interesting because, like most plants, most house plants, they kind of just grow a big bulb of root systems, you know, maybe having one or two really big ones. But the ZZ plant, each kind of grouping of leaves and stems come out of this big bulb, and then this bulb has other little roots attached to it. It is a very drought, just gonna pick a brown leaf off before I show you. It is really drought tolerant. I believe it's from a plant from Africa, that's native to Africa. So it you know, you can beat up on this plant as long as you spray it a couple times and mist it, and then give it a good watering every once in a while, you're good to go. It reminds me similarly of how orchids kind of go into a dormant state, and then if you give it a good amount of water, it'll bloom. Same with this guy, it has bloomed once. The flowers can be white or green. I believe this one was kind of white. But once you water it and it gets dry, it can kind of push it into a state of blooming. But this guy has been very good to me. I have lost a couple bulbs because of the type of soil that it's in. This one is a really dry soil. I kind of mixed it with like a cactus type soil so that it wouldn't retain too much water. I also didn't even need to put this one in a pot that has a good draining system. It looks like it has one on the bottom, but it's fake. It's purely for show. So if you have one of those pesky pots that does not have a drainage hole, get a little ZZ plant. It will love it. If you know you've got a brown thumb, this guy is for you as well. The one thing that I don't do well with this plant is clean the leaves. Some plants, depending on what soil they're in or the environment, they might take a lot of dust onto the plant leaves. But that's easy if you get a little wet paper towel or like a face towel, clean those guys right off and they will glow. They will be so glossy and beautiful. And I'll show you when I get close to the camera. They shine, they bump all the light off of them, and they just have this gorgeous shine to them. I can get my sweater out of there. So they grow off of these long stems, and then most of them are pretty symmetrical. Where you see one leaf, you'll see another leaf on the other side. But also some of these little guys just have two leaves. This guy, let me see if I can get it on camera, is actually about to shoot up another little sprout. Let's see, right in there. Cute little guy. It hasn't sprouted in a while, so I know I am doing something right. So I will keep you all updated on how that sprout goes. But that was our beautiful ZZ plant. All right. I'm gonna show this little guy. I found this guy at Lowe's. It was in the clearance section, you know, the clearance plant section, where everything is just not looking good. It's brown and droopy and sad. So I got this guy. He's still got some, oh, a leaf actually just fell off. He has a lot of brown leaves that I'm looking to fix. But it is doing well. I feel bad that he was in the clearance section, which is why I bought him. And the first thing I noticed that was wrong about this plant, because I've had a polka dot plant before, is that the polka dots on this one are white. There's very few of them and they're white. Now the problem is that polka dot plants, the leaves themselves are kind of what the polka dot color looks like. So this one has white polka dots, which means the leaf should be white technically with green splotches. So it's kind of reversed, and because of that, it means it's unhealthy. More often than not, the actual polka dot color should be pink, which I'm assuming this guy is. So I'm hoping he will come back to life with my love and my care. Right now, he is just in a little pot that I know it will get good drainage in. I'm hoping the root system will keep growing and will get nice and strong. But let me bring him up. I also have a tiny little shovel in there, kind of just for show. So this is yeah, you can see these polka dots. There should be a whole lot more. This one is really mainly green, which means that, yeah, you could see some of these leaves. They're brown at the end. But you can see at the base, let me get a good angle. At the base, there's all these little tiny babies growing up. So that leaf just fell off. Don't mind that guy. So another thing that's funny with this plant is that it should be kind of more bushy, but this guy is kind of grown straight up. So hopefully with the new plants that are coming in, it'll end up growing a little bit more like a bush and less like a stalk. But we'll see. Another update. Maybe I'll do this every month. We'll update you guys on all these gorgeous plants. Okay, next one is in the back. This guy I almost dropped on the ground just now. So this guy is basically, let me get a good angle on him. So it is the afternoon when I'm filming this right now. And I think the most distinctive feature that you might be able to recognize is that this plant is kind of like this, which is wonderful because this plant is supposed to be doing that. It is known as a prayer plant. So that means basically towards the end of the night when the sun is no longer out. Right now I'm filming on a gloomy day. So the sun never came out in general. So this actually looked like this all day. When the sun goes away, this plant closes up because there's no more nutrients coming from the sunlight. Basically getting ready to nap for the night. But this guy never really had a chance to open up its leaves, otherwise I would have filmed them. But this guy is a part of the Calathea family, which are plants that look a little more like this. Some of the other Calatheas are kind of like a mix of long frondy leaves with these pinstripes on them. But this specific one is called a pinstripe plant, or it's called Calathea ornata. You'll see when I get closer that it just has these beautiful colorings on both sides of the plant. Actually, the back it has purple pinstripes, and the front is kind of a mix of like pink, green, and white. This is the most expensive plant that I have bought so far. I was really thinking about it for a while. It took me a lot of time to commit to this plant because I knew it was a Calathea, and I knew Calatheas can sometimes be super sassy. But it turns out that this type of Calathea is actually pretty mellow. I haven't had a bad time with this guy yet. For new plant owners though, the idea of a prayer plant can be kind of difficult to get used to, only because it moves so much. I felt when I first got this that it was in a different type of stance like every minute that I saw it, and I wasn't sure if it was unhappy, if it was super happy, or if it was just kind of hanging out. But turns out they're really mellow. It is a beautiful plant, pretty easy to take care of. Right now it is one of my plants that are kind of in a dormant stage during the winter, so I make sure that this guy doesn't get too cold, doesn't get too dry, doesn't get too wet, because it's kind of slowing everything down and it's not going to be able to react in a great amount of time. It hasn't flowered yet. I haven't had it long enough to see it flower. But it says that the flowers should be kind of like a yellow greenish color. So I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, I spent a lot of money on this baby and I would love to see it flower. All right, so let me bring him on over to you all. Okay, I'll show you the top plant because it is the most distinct. I mean, look at those colorings. We've got that beautiful pink on the inside. You can even see in this one. This one's catching the light really well. So the center is kind of more that pink color. The outside's a little more white. We've got some babies that are growing towards the bottom. Trying to get a good angle. There we go. Because it is a prayer plant, it's kind of hard to record. You have to get it at good times during the day. But it is probably my favorite plant in this bunch. It's like picking children, but I can do that with plants. Okay. Put our pinstripe plant down. All right, the next one is a small but very cute little guy. I just got this little holder for it because I had nowhere to put it really, other than just like sitting it on my desk. But this little guy is an air plant. It is like the perfect starter plant that just kind of hangs out wherever you put it. You can water it a little bit, like once a month water. But this guy is super small. I've never had an air plant that's really any bigger than this. They do grow kind of at a slow pace, depending on where you put them. Mine was sitting on a desk for a while, so it didn't get a lot of love from the sunlight. But they do bloom kind of in the summertime. Like these small little fronds that are sticking out will shoot out longer ones, and then there'll be nice little blooms that fall down. Which I didn't know this next fact, I looked online. Giant air plants are actually native to Florida and Georgia, which I spent a good amount of time in Georgia about 2 years ago. I have never seen a native air plant, but I wish I did. And it said that they're very susceptible to being invaded by weevils, which I thought was just the strangest sentence I had ever heard. One, the fact that they can be from Florida or Georgia, and two, that a weevil, which are kind of big, I think, would be able to invade them and make a little home out of them. But you guys might have known that. I did not. I was very surprised at that. But air plants are kind of like that plant that every kid gets when they want a plant, but like their parent knows that they'll kill a plant. Mainly because they survive without water directly for a while, and they also don't even need soil. So this is just my little holder for it. You know, wanted it to look kind of fancy and cute. It also looks like it's doing a little trapeze act, which I thought was hilarious. Very cute, very tiny. Good talking point when he's sitting on my desk. All right, so I've got this one big plant, which I can bring up to show you guys. So this is called an angel wings plant. I believe its Latin name is Senecio. I just call it angel wings. This was a plant that grew very well over in the health center. I started a gardening program over there there's just a little bug. In our courtyard, we had vegetables growing out there. We did tomatoes. We had a couple herbs. We had a lot of mint growing out there, and we also had 10 beautiful sunflowers out back. If you join me for any of my exercise classes over the summer, I brought a couple sunflowers in every once in a while when we had gorgeous blooms. But this guy didn't make it over because it was actually a lot bigger than this. I had it in a huge planter on the ground, and it actually got so big I was able to cut it down. I've got another part of it here that's growing. I was able to cut it down and make about 6 other plants out of it. So I have one at home. I gave 2 away to a team member to grow at his house. There's one more in my office. Another one a resident has, so it just absolutely took off. It's very similar. I'll get up and close and personal to these leaves. It's very similar to a plant that I had growing up in my backyard, which is called lamb's ear. And lamb's ear are just kind of like short little stumpy bushes, but they are so soft. They are the softest plant, super similar to the white velvet plant that I have. Just fuzzy little leaves, irresistible to anyone. Literally no one sees it and doesn't touch it. And people come in all the time asking how it's doing, wondering when I'm gonna be able to split it up even more, because people just love the way it looks and they love how it feels. And you know, how could you say no to such a beautiful plant like this? Let me make sure. It is pretty drought tolerant. It's actually a succulent, which I did not know. I knew it liked a lot of sunlight because of the garden center that I got it from, along with the vegetables. I had never seen it, so I looked to the professionals for help. And they told me it was a succulent, which I thought was very interesting because it doesn't look like a succulent. You know, it doesn't look like that cactus that you always see. But super drought tolerant. You can put it almost anywhere. I've got them in this pot. I used to have it in a bigger planter, but you can also plant it right into the ground. It will go dormant over the winter. So I'm not sure if you want, you know, if you've got some space out back and you can plop it in there, go for it. But let me show you an up close picture. So the bottom has all these really, before I keep going and the plant's not even in the picture. So there are these huge, like hand-sized plants right there. Also one grown over here. I mean, just these massive little ones. And then it's kind of got a stalk in the middle. See, they're all growing out of here. We've got a couple that has its own stalk over here. But let me try and get one that's got some light on it. Here, these guys. I wish that you guys could all feel this plant through the video because they are so soft. I mean, just this glossy white color, shiny. They're also really interesting on the other side. You could see all the veins. Everyone that I speak to say that the middle ones, like the little tiny leaves that grow from the middle are the softest, but the ones on the bottom are the biggest. So either way, gorgeous plant. Good for someone with a bit of a brown thumb because it doesn't need a lot of attention, even though everyone gives it a lot of attention because it is so pretty and so soft. I only got this last year, probably last summer, so I haven't seen it bloom, but I believe it blooms in kind of like a cluster of yellow flowers. Similar, if anyone has had the plant chicks and hens, which are kind of like short little bulby plants, and they shoot off these long fronds with like groupings of pink flowers. I think this is a similar one. Hopefully I will see it this year and I can share it all with you guys. Because I brought it inside, I got this nice little fancy holder for it. Because, you know, it's a gorgeous plant. You want to have it somewhere gorgeous it can sit as well. So the last guy on my list is truly my most favorite. I know I said I love my pinstripe plant, but this guy, I think, while the pinstripe plant gives me the most joy because it's so beautiful, I think this guy in here is really a different type of joy because this is my moss ball. And I decided since he is a moss ball, and he is so beautiful and wonderful, his name is Bob Moss. So I don't usually name my plants, but I felt a special connection to this little guy, and I thought the name play of Bob Ross and Bob Moss, I couldn't avoid it, you know? So this guy is a moss ball. The formal name is a Marimo moss ball, and he is literally a ball of algae, and I love him dearly. He is so cute. You most likely have seen these maybe in aquariums, or if people have fish tanks at their house. They pretty commonly have moss balls because they are very easy to take care of. And they also have a codependent relationship with the fish, or if you have shrimp, or my friend has crayfish in his fish tank. It really offers a really great codependent environment for fish that, you know, you might just feed with pellets or fish food. But this algae guy will actually offer some sort of like stimulation to them as well, as far as a different type of feeding goes. So this guy is usually in the deep, dark depths of rivers or oceans. So I don't usually take him out in bright sunlight. I brought him here in a box because that's just how much I love him. And it can also be found in some lakes, specifically in Japan, Iceland, Scotland, and Estonia. The reason that they are a ball is because of the wave movements. So that is really specific to how they can grow and where they can grow. They need to have motion of waves in order to get them into a ball form. And the moss ball itself is symbolic of good luck. So needed some of that when I got Bob Moss. And they grow super, super, super slow. So if you want a moss ball, it's gonna be around for a long time. This guy I got last year, I believe. And I remember he looked so small. I got him in like a little pouch with some water. And I remember thinking, he's so small, it's gonna take forever for him to grow. But in a year, I can tell that he's had a little bit of growth, not a lot. Maybe right now he's about 2 inches big in diameter. So it's funny, I was looking up some more information about moss balls because other than Bob Moss, I don't have a lot of moss ball experience. But the biggest moss ball was 12 feet in diameter. And they can live literally until eternity, like a lobster. They will live on and on and on as long as they're in water, and as long as they get clean water to some extent and they don't just like mold over and get brown and die. So that's interesting. I'm gonna have this guy for a long time. But let me bring him up to you. Introduce you all to Bob Moss. So there he is. So I currently have him in a glass container filled to the top with purified water. Basically water out of like a Brita filter, so it's not hard water. You can see him bopping around in there. All these shells are basically shells that I've collected throughout my journey. I thought, since I loved my guy Bob Moss so much, that I would put him with some of my favorite memories. So I've got shells here from the Jersey Shore, Hawaii, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, as well as Rhode Island, Connecticut, California. Trying to think of where else I've been. I've kind of been bopping along the coasts. I think I had a weird piece of wood in here somewhere, or like a weird piece of dirt that I found in South Dakota. that I thought was kind of funny and wanted to include in here. One last look at my guy Bob Moss. So the one thing, let me see if I can get on camera with him. Me and Bob Moss. So the one thing that I thought was super funny, trying to make sure my head's in the camera, about having moss balls kind of in aquariums or in tanks like this, was that there's no wave situation. Obviously, he's staying pretty still. So every once in a while, you gotta give him a good shake. Because if he sits on the floor or if he sits on a weird shell, which I have in here, he will kind of take the shape of whatever he's sitting on, because he simply is a ball of moss. Bob Moss. But that is all I have for you all today. I think that is all my house plants. I've got a couple more at home, so maybe I will make another video showing you guys what's going on. I definitely want to make a video about all of the plants I will be introducing into my horticulture program over in the health center so that you guys can see what's going on. I'm assuming all of our sunflowers from this past summer are gonna sprout out again because we lost a lot of seeds out there. So there's a possibility there might be a sunflower field in the back of the health center. Who knows? But thank you all for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful time meeting some of my plants, meeting my moss ball. You know, gardening is something I took up pretty recently. Houseplant ownership is something I took up a couple years ago. And I just love it. You know, these plants are making oxygen just for you, so breathe it on in if you've got those plants. But that is all I have for you. I hope you really enjoyed this and that I didn't just speak into the camera to myself about all my plants that I already know so well. But if you ever see me coming out from my exercise group and you want to show me your plant pictures, I am down for that. Or if you notice something and you want to give me a hint as to what I am doing wrong, I am totally open to that. Or if you want a piece of the angel wings when it starts blooming again, let me know. I'll cut it up for you. But thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all again soon.